to the San Francisco Sales Ops Happy Hour. So we ran 3 of these events last year, so this is our first event of 2017, and it's got a phenomenal crowd here tonight, so I want to really thank everybody for coming along. My name is Kevin Mannion. I'm the General Manager of Data Hub for North America. My co-host Gabe from Always Hired is also here. He might give us a wave. I want to really thank, first of all, our hosts here at LinkedIn. They've got a phenomenal location here, and we had 3 happy hours last year, and most of the time the microphones didn't work, so I'm glad that people can hear us this time. I want to thank our sponsors as well, so just going to give them all a little shout out. So first of all to WalkMe. So Emilia from WalkMe is going to moderate our panel, so thank you very much to them. WalkMe are a digital engagement platform that simplifies user experience on platforms like Salesforce. So I'm not going to read all these because they're a bit hard to read sometimes, but also thanks to Datanyze, to DocuSign, and to LeadGenius, especially Joe, who helped get this panel together. So thanks very much, Joe. And I can remember Joe's one, so they do lead generation and enrichment for enterprise companies. Also to Nova.ai that do AI for sales development teams, and to SalesLoft, so most people know what SalesLoft is. So I think that's our sponsors. Thanks to our hosts. Now the most important people here are our panel, so I want to introduce you to Emilia, who's the VP of Customer Engagement at WalkMe. Got Salil, who's the VP of Sales Operations at DocuSign. Got Branca, who's the Senior Director of Growth at Zenefits, who's also got a long history in sales operations, she tells me. And finally to Jeffrey, who's the VP of Sales Operations and Strategy at Campaign Monitor. So, thank you very much. That's all for me, so I'm going to hand over to Emilia here now to do a Q&A session, and the audience will be able to ask questions afterwards, so we'll do that once the first round of Q&As is done.
All right, thank you for the introduction. So a little bit, I apologize, I have to stand, I'm Italian, feel like I need to use my hands a little bit, and I just found out less than 24 hours ago I'd be the moderator, so bear with me. I just want to tell you a little bit about WalkMe. We're a real-time guidance application for any platform like Salesforce. We're the world's first digital adoption platform. What does that even mean? For salespeople in particular, you may be trying to close an opportunity on Friday at 5 p.m. You have no idea how to do it because you forget your training, and you want to close that deal. And what WalkMe does is it walks you through in real time. It's a just-in-time GPS for the web. It lives in Salesforce, Workday, many other applications, and it helps companies like Sora cut down on free to paid subscriptions, for example, or MasterCard help thousands of employees with onboarding in a shorter time. So just a little bit about WalkMe. So without further ado, let's connect with our panelists. So we're talking about sales efficiency, and we have 5 very important questions that everyone wants to know about. So let's start with you, Branca. We'd love to find out how sales teams are always trying to become more efficient. Can you talk a little bit about how sales operations is playing a role for you at Zenefits in this very important goal?
Yeah, for sure. So I think one of the things that we discussed a lot when we prepped for the panel was kind of like why we want to become more efficient, right? Like the importance of that. And I think it's obviously more growth. You just want to get more out of those people that you already have on staff. You know, make sure that like you're maximizing the utilization and you're getting to the best deals. I think what we've seen in Zenefits is like the role of sales ops was like critical to get that going. So we kind of like had a profile of like, you know, sales managers being really good salespeople that could really coach the sales, the aides that we had and the SDRs as well. But sales ops really came with this kind of like mentality of like, what are the right systems? What are the right processes? What are the right metrics for us to be able to support these people? The sales team in really like maximizing their efficiency. So it's, I think, having a strong partnership between kind of like the leadership of sales and sales operations is critical for us.
And what about you, Jeff? You've been at several companies doing this in sales. Can you talk a little bit about your experience?
I can. I've never understood why the moderator gets the cheat sheet with the questions. As sales ops professionals, we're always talking about conversion rates and velocity and rep productivity, time to ramp. And we're always looking for the levers. So, well, first of all, where the areas aren't performing and the levers that we can push on, pull them, and the strategies and the tactics to improve those metrics. What we're really doing is talking about efficiency, productivity, but in large part it's efficiency that we're being asked to deliver as part of the productivity. So I think what we do to bring efficiency to a company is just our job. Some operations should be making things better. And if you're working on anything that isn't improving something, the productivity and especially the efficiency, you probably shouldn't be working on it. Our role is to go wherever we need to in the organization, hopefully not just in sales, but our partner organizations as well, and drive those improvements, be very deliberate about it. And I think when you're at a company, and fortunately I've worked at some good ones where they really value what we bring, they look to us to be the ones to identify those areas that need improvement. They look for us to recommend the strategies and the tactics to deliver those improvements. And they really look for us to push and manage that change. And as a result, I think we get to work on a lot of really cool things, strategies and initiatives, and interact with more people in that organization than most other roles do. So I think it's just our job to drive efficiency.
So, Salil, would you like to add anything?
So what I would say is, in the initial stages we've seen in our different businesses within DocuSign, the effectiveness is a key issue for the sales organization. Focusing on the right set of customers, focusing on the right set of sales cycles perhaps, and so on. As the organizations grow, it becomes increasingly important for the growth to be efficient. And one of the key metrics for us is, in our various different businesses is really around the customer acquisition cost. And per dollar of new business we bring in, what's the cost? And that becomes increasingly important over time. And sales ops is really at the center of that. Our core role is around productivity, using all the levers that we have talked about.
So you're working at high growth companies. You obviously have problems. If you tell me you don't, you're lying. Can you talk a little bit about the problems that you're experiencing and efficiencies?
Different aspects of the business have different efficiency issues. So for example, if you take a look at our SMB segment, very critical for us to be able to do the pipeline generation and get the leads to the teams as quickly as possible. And streamlining that process is probably one of the most critical things we can do to reduce friction. If we take a look at, for example, our enterprise segment, going after the larger companies, one of the interesting things we found was that the issue is more around the ramp-up time for our sales executives. Particularly as you're growing very fast, the ramp time can play a very big factor in your overall efficiency. So different segments can need to focus on different things, and lots of opportunity to go to work.
Yeah, I think the point you made about companies at different sizes was great. At Marketo for the last 4 years before I joined Campaign Monitor, everything I was dealing with was scale. We were getting so big and doing it so quickly, and had so many organizations across the globe, multiple products, different segments, that it was all around how to scale and how to make that global organization feel like a single one. Campaign Monitor, it's a much smaller company on the direct side. It's been around for a while, big self-service business, but the direct side of the business is a dozen reps. So the things that are problems here is really some of the foundational stuff that you put in to really develop good sales processes, good ways of working with your partners, executing an integrated campaign for the first time. How do you actually do that and build those playbooks? So what I'm working on now is more playbooks, is more of the general processes, the foundations that you would build so that you can be efficient going forward, and at some point, hopefully very soon, begin to work into that scale and do it from a better start than maybe where I was when I joined Marketo.
Branca, anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I think I'll just add to kind of like we talked about different like segments, but these are also like different roles sometimes within sales. So you have like the SDR side, you have the closer side, the account executives, and I think for us, one of the things that as we scaled up was really thinking through these different roles having like different efficiency issues, and like, you know, for one role you want to focus on a certain set of processes. For another role, it's more like training the reps to like have the right, have the right talk track. So very different problems depending on whatever the team that you're talking about.
So everything's measured these days. We want to know, how are you measuring your success? And so my question is, when you're looking at these platforms that you're implementing or scaling with sales, what have you done in the past 6 months that's been measurable and had a high impact on your sales team?
I could start. This started before I joined Campaign Monitor, but I think it's a good story. One of the areas that they wanted to improve was the SDR workflow from MQL to SQL. Again, big self-service business, a really good inbound engine. The things that came to them were people signing up through the self-serve portal that reached the threshold, wanting to get direct sales, people downloading and wanting to see the demo or wanting to talk to us. We had to be very efficient and high quality of how we manage these folks that were sales ready, but we had to do it at high volume. And the response times, the IRTs weren't good, the velocity was all over the place, there was complete inconsistency of why things moved. So again, started a little bit before I joined, an initiative to really re-engineer that whole thing. The first, I would describe that as getting back to basics. The first thing they did is really get rid of everything that was there and creating noise. Almost all the technology that was kind of bought and used, but never truly implemented or not implemented well or used inconsistently was really shut down, so that we got just to the basics. We had an inbound dialer and a router. And that really allowed us to see where those problems were and how it was performing. From there, we were able to re-engineer the process from beginning to end. It actually started with a blank sheet of paper, which usually doesn't happen. You're usually kind of evolving what you have, but they literally started from scratch. Implemented the process or designed it against the framework of how we wanted to qualify. Reconfigured Salesforce to completely execute this, and then of course enabled folks. The results were the internal response time went from well over 30 minutes and sometimes several hours to about 10 minutes. The overall velocity from MQL to SQL was reduced by about a third, which is incredibly significant in a high volume velocity business. We had complete consistency of how we were moving things through from SDR to reps and then into the pipeline, so that we truly have a baseline of how we're performing, which you typically don't ever get to. Now we understand how the ideal performance is, we understand when it's deviating both good and bad and what may be driving that. And then we're beginning down the path of re-implementing some things, evolving to where it used to be, implementing new technology that can help us become more efficient, like people AI, working with them back there, and a couple other things that sales acceleration will start to look at again and figure out how these things work. The thing that we really did though was manage the change. So it's great to do process, it's great to do technology, but we had daily stand-ups with every single manager in sales, SDR management, the managers that run inbound demand gen and marketing and the business ops partners. Every day for 30 minutes, we looked at what was new into that system, into SAL and into SQL. Was it being moved against the criteria and the policy we defined? We looked at aging reports. Why was it aging? We looked to ensure that the next action and the follow-up was taking place how we wanted it to work. And that did a great job of really, I don't want to use the word forcing, but it kind of forced adherence to this process, not only at the management layer, but as we push it up to our teams. So we absolutely drove adoption, we drove consistency. And I think if we did not do that, we would not even come close to seeing the results that we saw.
And were these teams global, or these managers global, where you did these 30-minute stand-ups?
They were not, which made it easier, although we do have an office in both Sydney and London, so oftentimes some of the people we were working with were in those locations.
Okay, great. Would you like to add to that?
Yeah, we had a slightly different kind of initiative. One of the things we noticed in our enterprise segment a little while ago was that there were a lot of smaller deals which were being tackled by our account executives. And these smaller deals were taking up a fair amount of their time and fundamentally taking away from their opportunity or their time to go close bigger deals. So we started an overlay team of account executives who essentially focused on the smaller opportunities within the larger accounts. And so it was a fairly complex process to figure out which opportunities they would actually tackle, how they would be able to work in conjunction with the account executives and to make sure that everyone gets the right credit and so on and so forth. But that turned out to be really effective for our enterprise team, and that business, or that segment of the business, is really grown at maybe 2.5 times the pace of growth of the rest of the business. So a little difficult to get implemented, particularly from a finance perspective. I'm sure folks will understand that one for an overlay team, but very, very effective for our business.
Great, so I want to make sure we have enough time for all our questions. So Branca, I'm going to ask you, have you put, whether it's in this role or another role, a process that you thought would make your team more efficient, but in fact backfired?
Yes. Yes.
We all want to know.
Say more. So we obviously wanted to, to my first point, like we want to get this efficiency and want to get more out of the same people we already have on staff. So there was a point, this was probably like a year and a half ago in Zenefits times, we had a pretty large SME teams, and our SME team at the time, they had to both like prospect, like schedule their own appointments, but also like close the deals, right? And so we kind of like identified, we're like, great, they're probably scheduling like one demo a day, and they're conducting demos or closing deals the rest of the time. But we were like, that's not enough. We think that they should do 2 a day for us to start getting like the productivity that we want out of them. And so we had this like very, very structured like program where like everyone is on board, everyone is going to schedule 2 demos a day, and we're really focused on that. And to a point, we're like, no, you're not going to leave it until you don't get 2 demos a day. And really, and it really backfired. And we saw that in like a month and a half. And obviously, you don't see it in the first time, but we saw that a lot of the demos are not high quality demos, these deals are not really advancing, and then it's just like a lot, and we've seen that in many other cases where, for example, with SDR teams, we were like, let's focus on dials, like you guys need to do more dials, and you start creating like different behavior that you don't really want to incentivize, so be careful with that. I think we all want to be aggressive and we want to get more out of our teams, but sometimes when you push it to the limit, you sometimes start getting low quality. So I think our learning was sometimes it's like better to like, especially when you have a young team that is like new to that role, like get them to like know what is like scheduling a good demo. Like what does it take to get one good one, and then start gaining efficiencies from that instead of like pushing for volume before that quality.
So you're saying test it out, make sure you train well before you push.
Before you push, for sure.
Okay, great. What about you, Jeff or Salil?
I think, the point, we can probably talk about a lot of tactical things we do. I think it's just part of our job, because as we're evolving with the company and putting in new processes and changing them, we're going to make mistakes that don't have the intended effect. So we've got to be very open-minded of identifying them and then course-correcting. I think the mistake that we tend to make at the bigger level is we make things too complex. You brought up, you were thinking about territories and stuff. At Marketo, we got to the point where our renewal business was our biggest, and our upsell and cross-sell and install base was as big as our new business. And we figured out all of these great things to do with multiple teams and who owned what, and this person would upsell, but only if it was at a certain time and a certain type of upsell. And it looked great, on paper and in the PowerPoint and the workflow, but it wasn't really consumable out in the field, and that's what it has to be for whatever we do at the end of the day. It needs to be consumable at scale. It needs to be consumable globally. It needs to be consumable with the new rep that's joining, with the one that's been there. And I think we sometimes overthink things. And when we got it out there, it didn't work all that great. And we had to unwind a lot of it and deal with a lot of the complexity and even the conflict that it put into the system. So I think don't make the mistake of once you figure out what you want to execute, stepping back, and is it simple enough? Do we need everything that's in there? Can we reduce the steps or the clicks or the complexity of this? Is it going to be able to be consumed in a relatively quick and easy way, by the field?
Great. So, would you like to add anything to that?
No, everything you do is perfect. So.
Okay. Of course.
No, in fact, actually, the example I gave earlier, where we got a different team tackling some of the smaller deals. We found that many deals were actually being turned over to them, even for small, little bit of help, hey, helping to the court and so on and so forth. So we had to actually draw that back and say, okay, you've got to have a strict set of parameters as to why you ask a different person to help you out close the deal. So pretty much everything you needs a little bit of correction typically. Often it's better to kind of get going and then correct along the way.
So I work very closely with sales, customer success, and marketing, and we're a global company. And one of my biggest challenges, I think many people will relate to this, is how do you align these teams? How do you ensure that there are efficiencies across the teams? No one can answer? Come on.
I can speak to that.
Okay, great.
So I started at Zenefits in sales operations for a little bit over a year. So dealt with the whole sales process and, from really our SDR process, inbound SDR, outbound SDR team, and then the closers as well. Working very closely on like systems, processes, metrics. And obviously, as any good person on the sales team, I was complaining a lot about the marketing team. I was complaining a lot about the quality of the data they were buying. I was complaining a lot about the quality of the emails they were sending. I was complaining a lot about the low volume of leads they were generating. So all of the things that you can possibly complain about. And so I kind of like decided to actually make the jump and I then joined the marketing team. To just see it for myself, and just try to fix it. So the interesting part about, I think both roles have a lot of complexity, and I think it just made me understand kind of the reality of both. And as a marketer, a lot of the times, the leadership is trying to push for volume, give me more leads, give me more leads. And it's all balance of give me more leads, but at a lower cost. And that always comes with a trade-off. And I think that's one of the things that if you put sometimes the wrong metrics, you kind of incentivize the wrong behavior and the wrong outcome. So if you push your marketing team really hard for lead volume and really low kind of cost per leads, you end up getting low quality leads and the sales team is not happy. So one of the things that I think I've been finding to try to bridge that gap and make sure that we have more. So one thing is I stay very close to the sales ops team. They are very close to my marketing team right now. And we kind of work that partnership really well in terms of campaigns that we do in marketing, keeping the sales team in the loop. And I think another thing is talking about some shared metrics, right? So for example, I think between marketing and sales, there's the concept of MQL and SQL, but if marketing doesn't care about SQL, then you start creating the wrong incentives. So that's one of the things that, even though sometimes we might not be compensated necessarily in these metrics, you're just looking at them and you feel ownership. So I think, to be honest, for all of the sales ops people here in the room, try to go spend just a little bit of time with the marketing team to figure out, and I think same thing for the marketing folks, because it does help you understand a lot of the constraints of the other team, and just make it better. I think it just becomes better for both teams.
That's great advice.
We went the other way around and we moved one of our key marketing people over into sales ops. So that's definitely part of the solution. But it then comes back ultimately to basics, where you make sure that you've got the same set of metrics defined by the same set of ports and so on, and you have an agreement at the end of the day as to what metrics we're going to get to it. And once you've got that agreement, I think everyone then is much more incented around pulling in the same direction, getting to that right answer. Takes a little bit of work, but certainly I think that's the way we're working it right now.
Great.
Yeah, I agree. I think Marketo was a little spoiled because we looked at it from the very beginning as a revenue funnel. And I think we've got to start with that mindset. It's not a sales, marketing, or success. It's a revenue funnel, and every piece of it affects the other part. You got to optimize the whole, not the individual parts. I had a great, person in marketing, Dave Kane, who's now a CMO at a company down the street at Marketo, and we planned everything together. The planning model was our model. We built it together. We started with the growth rates from one business at the front. We worked upstream. We agreed on sales capacity and quotas. We agreed on what marketing can spend and what they needed to deliver. Because we built it together and worked it out with our teams, We might have disagreed over what was causing the inefficiencies and how to fix them, but we never disagreed on what the objectives were or what the KPIs were. When we went in once a month to staff to do a metrics review, it was our deck. It wasn't 3 slides on marketing and 3 slides on sales. It was a slide on pipeline, and we both talked to it. So we did a really great job of aligning it there. And why that's so important is because we would have conversations about, we're just seeing great productivity in the outbound SDR team and SMB. So we wanted to add more because we were kind of working from the same plan, the same model, same budget, and against the same metrics. We might identify some marketing programs that maybe weren't performing great that we just decided not to do. We take the money, we hire more SDRs, and we get benefit of it. It might work the other way if we added capacity there and the productivity was flatlining. We wouldn't necessarily hire the next few that we wanted to even backfill. I would give the money to marketing, and we would completely agree on, here's the specific program we want you to invest in because we know it's going to deliver value. Because we work together that closely, we allocated all of our resources to the revenue funnel to where it needed to be. I don't think a lot of companies are there, and I think the way you get there is by understanding what your partner organizations do and truly understanding what they need to deliver, spending time with them, and ultimately it's about building relationships.
Great, so I have 2 last quick questions for you. One is, can you each share one key takeaway when you are thinking about decreasing inefficiencies in sales operations?
I'd say on a broader basis, from a sales operations is a very small part of the larger organization per se. The key really for us is around improving the efficiency and productivity of the sales organization overall. And I think in general there are a lot of really interesting tools out there. It's hard to kind of wade through them. There's so many. But that being said, there's a lot of very interesting technologies out there that can be used to really effectively improve productivity. And I think that's key to scaling, particularly in the small to mid SMB to mid-sized part of business.
Great, okay, so technology, investing in technology. Great, what about you, Jeff? What can you?
Yeah, I think that what we do, and given our backgrounds, we tend to move forward with technology and process, but we forget about the people part of it. So managing the change is the thing I think we need to do better. And I wasn't good at it when I started, and I eventually realized that it's so critical in getting adoption and getting buy-in to what you're doing and getting it to be institutionalized and explaining just to people the why we're doing this, helps as opposed to just, we're gonna have training and all of a sudden your road's gonna be different. If you don't stay on top of that, and it's not just a one-time thing, constantly stay on top of that, you're going to be successful getting the technology adopted, the processes adopted, and ultimately the full value that you need to.
Yeah, I think I'll finalize that. I agree with everything, but I'll finalize saying I think it's be careful with what you're measuring, what you're considering efficiencies, and think about before you try to set a goal to inefficiency targets that you want to achieve. Think about any consequences that you could kind of create with that, and start looking for those as well as you start driving the change to make sure you're not compromising on quality or not compromising on anything else that could potentially have a negative effect to your business, because this will happen for sure on things that you do, but if you can kind of take a step back before you implement and start measuring these things as well, it's just going to help you course correct faster.
Great, so this is all very insightful and helpful. Thank you very much for joining me tonight. I'm sure everyone's excited to get back to networking. And I'd love to ask you what your favorite song is on your iPhone right now, but it might be embarrassing. So instead, I'd love to ask you, what is your favorite app?
Great. Mine's ESPN, and especially this weekend coming up, it's probably going to be on all day.
Okay.
Over here, you have to say LinkedIn, right?
What about you, Branca?
I'm pretty addicted to the Amazon app.
Amazon. Okay. All right. Great. Well, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Thank you. Let's take some questions. question.
Okay, if someone has a question, stick your hand up and I'll run over.
So you all touched a lot about alignment, sales, ops, marketing, ops, or the sales and marketing alignment. How are you trying to drive that on your teams, sales ops teams, marketing ops teams, into one singular revenue ops team? And what is your advice for smaller companies trying to champion that at their companies?
Yeah, I can start. I'm not someone that thinks that sales ops and marketing ops should be together. I think they have two profoundly different things, but I think there's a lot of overlap. What I did at Marketo was I created, I'm a big fan of steering committees and just getting people together. We created a committee called DIRT. I've used it before. It stands for Data Integrity Recovery Team. And it was really this data governance and process, and we made sure that we didn't hand a field or take one away and they didn't either. It was really getting down to how are you going to manage industry codes and addresses and territories and owners. But by making that a formal thing, it's steering committee, with a mission, with some PowerPoints for your presentations with a little logo, and celebrating the wins and having projects. I think you drive a lot of the alignment between those teams. I think the other thing to keep in mind as you're building alignment is, again, it's about relationships and partnering, and you need a good partner on the other side, but you also have to learn how to be a good partner, which means listening and compromising and understanding and working to consensus.
One thing we've done at DocuSign is something we call pipeline councils, which is a roughly bi-weekly meeting, which involves not just sales and marketing operations, but also the sales leaders involved in that particular segment of the business, as well as the marketing leads involved as well, so that everyone continues to have that dialogue about alignment in their particular segment and correction, course correction as needed as well. It's worked pretty well for us.
Similar thing, yeah, we did the same. We just created like a shared meeting between where everybody, like sales and marketing, they kind of like report on their funnels and like starting with marketing and going back into sales. I think the alignment around like campaigns at first and just having the teams like not sit too far. Just that physical proximity helps quite a bit.
Great. I've got another one here from Ali.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Kevin. You have been in sales operations for a while. You've led sales operations team. So my question is two parts. Part one, if you go back 10 years, how do you think the sales operations function has evolved till now? And then if you fast forward 10 years, where do you think sales operations is going to go in the future?
Good question.
So I joined at least one company, SAP, prior to DocuSign, where there didn't exist a sales operation function. We were literally the first wave of people coming in with that title. And sales ops at that time was really just scattered around between finance, between marketing, some folks within sales. People just got stuff done somehow. So it was interesting to kind of put it all together into a cohesive function. I think it's got a lot more structure today than I saw, give or take, about 10 years ago. And, it's certainly starting to see colleges offering courses around sales operations, which is great to see. Where it's going from here, I need a little bit of thought. I'm not quite sure.
That's a whole nother panel.
I can speak to where I think it's going. I think because we have so many tools these days and we're really always looking for efficiencies, I think it's going from being just like someone who's like reporting on metrics and like supporting the sales team to like being a lot more strategic around how are you going to find these efficiencies. Like you have usually your head of sales and the sales team focusing on like getting the, closing the deals, and then someone needs to be thinking about like how can we like change this game to like keep up to date. And so understanding the tools, understanding like now we talk about a stack, right? People have a stack, they have Salesforce, they have like all these other tools, and how do they talk to each other? So I think partnering a lot with vendors is something that is really important, understanding what's out there. And like there are many different tools, and you just need to understand the ones that are right for your goals, right? Like what worked for another company might not work for you because it might be a different use case. So I think the technology part is becoming a lot more important in sales ops.
Thanks. At this side of the room is hogging all the questions. I've got Samir here with me.
All right. Question for you guys. We have a lot of people here, I'm sure they run a lot of forecasting calls. What's your advice to everybody here, how to run effective forecasting calls, with especially leaders who have very ego, and you have leaders who don't want to share their forecasts? So, effective way of running forecast calls.
Hey, sir. How you doing? My quick answer to the biggest one is if you listen to some of the vendors, we won't need sales guys in 10 years, so maybe we won't need sales ops folks. That's an incredibly tough thing to do because there's so much emotion in forecasting and behavior and forecasting. It's not just the facts. And the reason is because you're not gaming it, but you're trying to tell the right sort of story of where you've been and where you've come and where you're going, and provide the right sort of data to the rest of the company. I think that you got to do a couple of things. I think the most important thing is when you run the forecast calls to make it very standard in cadence. Know exactly what you want people to tell you, how you want them to tell you, in the order of how they tell you. So you're forcing them to give you what you want and not what they want to talk about, and don't let them deviate from that. People hear that fly planes, when you talk to the control tower, the first thing you say to everybody says first, and then you know what you're going to get in response. You know what you're going to say third. And I think putting that sort of rigor and structure into the actual meeting is important. I think the other thing you need to do is constantly triangulate the information. I know we use some common tools where we look at what the predicted or the pacing tells us. You want to look at what they tell you. You want to look at just the math from the probabilities. You want to look at some of the things from measuring it historically of where you are and where you think you'll end. You want to look at it deal by deal if you can. You actually want to go out, and I do this a lot, is talk to individual reps about certain deals that are big deals and swing deals to see if they're getting the same sort of information. So a lot of structure in the meeting, but a lot of triangulation and talking to more than just the sales managers, I think helps you get to a more accurate point of view and better on the forecast. The last thing is you can't make it so that it's bad. I've sat too many forecast meetings over the years, and someone is calling under their plan and the sales leader is just beating them up. Guess what? They're gonna raise next week just because you beat them up. You've got to make it very, open and easy for people to kind of come in and tell the truth about their perspective of what's happening.
Yeah, I'd say, structure 100%, and you've got to have a very, very structured approach to it. And I think the other part is predictability. No surprises in the forecast calls, the triangulation, other data that you have available to everybody walking in, that takes surprises are probably the worst thing that you want to have in the call. So I think those two things have quite a bit.
Okay, we do one more question? Maybe this side of the room? Okay.
So the CEO invites you to a board meeting, and one of the board members asks you, what are the two most intriguing metrics in your dashboard?
Intriguing? Well, number one.
I didn't say important, I said intriguing. Important, maybe it's consistent response. So intriguing should be differentiated.
I think some of the sales productivity metrics are always intriguing. You see how you deviate and how well you're enabling and ranking. And I think more than anything, those points to whether you're going to be able to capture the opportunity you have to grow in the future. I think the other one is I like rolling 3-month views of conversions. I like conversions rather than win rates, which I can tell you how efficiently you're moving, from the top of the funnel demand through the sales cycle.
Why 3?
Why 3?
Why a 3-month window?
I think you get the seasonality out of the quarter. The last month of the quarter tends to be different than the first month. Even if you have enough history, 6 months would even be better. I think you want to normalize the seasonality out of it to the extent that you can.
I'd say on the one we typically end up focusing a fair amount of time in different flavors is really around cost of acquisition of new business. So long-term value of customers over customer acquisition costs. and different flavors around that tend to be a pretty key area of focus for us. I would say some of the other interesting ones we really tracked are time to productivity for account executives. That's certainly in a fast growth environment, different flavors, whether you get to, when the first larger transaction that the account executive closes, or the time that the productivity is at a run rate that you would expect from a fully ramped account executive. But those productivity metrics, or time to productivity, are pretty key for.
I'll go with, I think one that is interesting is more than the metric, it's more the breakdown, is when you start looking at the top of the funnel, which is what I'm focused on right now, is like cost per lead or cost per whatever it is at the top of the funnel by channel. When we actually started opening that up and really having more active data at Zenefits, we started seeing like big inefficiencies that we started looking. So really, as much as possible, opening metrics from an average to a by channel, by segment, by day, really helps you understand like what you need to focus on. That was one thing for us, I think was big. And then the second thing is, that I found very interesting is, depending on your business and the sales cycle, looking at the metrics on like a daily basis or a weekly basis, instead of a monthly, and try to understand if you find patterns. For example, I know we did find patterns at Zenefits, like beginning of month versus end of month for obviously a variety of reasons. And looking at that really helps you understand what kind of behavior you want to do. So kind of like, not necessarily the metrics, but really the trends, and double clicking on them gives you sometimes good insights.
Great. Okay, I think we'll leave the last word with you, Branca. So I just want to round of applause for the panel there. That'd be awesome. So just a couple of announcements. I think we're around here for another 30 minutes or so, and I think somebody took a hit and got some beer, so hang around and talk. We'll definitely be back with another one of these sessions in the next couple of months, so really looking forward to it. And finally, just want to say thank you to the organisers, to LinkedIn, to Corey in the sound room that kept the show on the road, and to Kelsey from Games team and Mindy from Lighting, who were great all the way along. So thank you very much, everyone.